Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'll be discussing the reasoning strategy for RBI Grade B Phase 1 examination. So there are a lot of personal experiences I'll also share with respect to this section in today's video. So before we begin, we have some videos which I put up on RBI Grade B experience so far. So you have strategy videos for GA, Quant and English, and I have also put up my Marksheet analysis of this year, and of course the 2022 interview experience is also there on the channel. You can check that video out. There have been few requests for this year's interview transcript, which I'll be sharing in most probably the next video, so stay tuned for that video as well. To start with the reasoning section, I would say personally I am very uncomfortable with reasoning section because this is one of those sections which really haunts me. The reason for the same is I do not solve a lot of reasoning questions, and honestly I do not enjoy solving reasoning questions, especially puzzles and seating arrangements in which you have to give a lot of time and effort, and then many times you're not able to solve the question. So reasoning is like that only, and I don't think I'm the right person to guide you in the most effective way for this section, but certainly I can tell you some of my experiences, and I am sure that these experiences will be valuable to you in some way or the other. And I'll also share what is my strategy to score the bare minimum marks which I think one should be scoring, but it is difficult. It is difficult without doubt. So if I focus on my reasoning experience so far, so in 2021 my marks were 11. This year I could not clear the sectional cutoff of reasoning because the sectional cutoff was 12 marks, so I fell short by 1 mark. In 2022 it was 11.25. The sectional cutoff dropped to 9 marks, so I was well above the sectional cutoff. This year I have scored 14.75 marks in the reasoning, and the sectional cutoff is again 9 marks, so I'm comfortably above the sectional cutoff. But after giving the exam, I had a feeling that I don't know what I have done in the reasoning section, because very often in reasoning the answer that you are marking, you're not sure whether it is correct or not, unlike Quant or English where you have a lot of certainty, because reasoning is very complicated section in my opinion. So like you must be knowing that we have 60 questions to solve in 45 minutes for reasoning, and reasoning is very exhausting section. You need to be on alert mode while solving the questions, because if you miss any of the numbers or say any of the instructions in the questions, you are definitely going to land up on the wrong answer, or you will not find the answer, and then you have to redo the question again. A very common example which I remember is this year in the input output question in the shift 2. So I think there were around 10 to 12 elements that you had to rearrange and use, identify the pattern and then get the output. So on the screen, first number was 5 or some number was there, and second number or second letter was there, which was EZ6, something of that sort. The series was like that. Many of the students, they did not see this 5, and they started and picked up and solved the questions from here, and they could not get the correct answer. Of course they'll not get the correct answer because they missed one element. So you have to be very careful, and you have to be very attentive to on the screen, and you have to focus on every single detail and read the questions very carefully in reasoning. Another error that people commit, that in the rearrangement questions, let's say there are many elements are there, and if you are not able to replicate the same element in your while solving the questions, and you miss one or two alphabet or numbers, so your questions will go wrong. And these easy questions, if you solve these questions wrong, your chances to qualify the sectional cutoff, it decreases massively. So you have to solve 60 questions in 45 minutes, but you don't have to solve 60 questions. I'll tell you how many questions you should be targeting in the later slides, but this is just to give you an overview. Without doubt, for me it is the most difficult section. It is hands-on the most difficult section, because quant I am very comfortable with numbers, so I can solve quant, but reasoning is, again, you have verbal reasoning, you have puzzles with different types of variations are there in the reasoning. So reasoning I'm not very comfortable with. For me it is the most difficult. Your target score, this is the score, not the number of questions that should be attempting. The target score should be 15 plus, and I'm telling you why 15 plus, because over the past few years 12 has been the highest sectional cutoff of reasoning. Tomorrow it is possible that if question level goes easy, this can increase, but the chances are less that the question level will be easy. The question will be more or less on the same level or little bit higher level. They can go on the cat level maybe, but I think you should be targeting 15 marks so that you have a cushion, a couple of questions here and there, and you are still safe. So that is why 15 marks should be the number which should be in your mind. And most important is choosing right questions in reasoning. This is the same strategy which I have told in quant as well, and in reasoning the strategy is mostly same. A little bit variations are there because reasoning has more varieties of questions and you have to be more strategic in reasoning compared to quant. So this is the broad syllabus of reasoning, and I have divided the syllabus into 3 parts. This is and without doubt these are as per my understanding and my comfort, so it can vary from person to person, but generally what I have observed, I have made this bifurcation or trifurcation I should say on the basis of that general observation, which according to me how is the level of question that is being asked in the reasoning section. So this is the easy section, and these are the moderate topics, and this is the tough topic. So let's focus on some of the easy topics which you should also be focusing on while solving the mocks and while solving the paper in the examination hall. So inequalities is an easy topic, so if you need to do mastery and practice these questions a lot in the easy section. Next is direction and distances. So usually what happens in direction and distances, you will get 3 to 4 questions and you have to solve one direction and distance question, and you can get 3 to 4 answers in sequence. So this is a very good way to reach to 15 marks. So these are the sections which will help you get closer to that number. Next is alphanumeric series. Usually it is solvable. You need to do practice a few questions and you'll be good to go. Ordering and ranking is one of the most easy sections. You have to be very careful, like I said previously, while you are copying this the element or whatever the letter which is given in the questions, you have to be very careful, and while performing the operations as instructed in the question, you have to be very careful, and you can surely get the correct answer in these sections. Next is moderate section, blood relation. This can be tough for few, but it can be solvable as well. So it depends what kind of questions they are giving in blood relation. Sometimes blood relation is combined with puzzles and those types of questions. Of course, you need to be categorizing them in the tough category without doubt. Syllogism, some people are not at all comfortable with syllogism, some people are very comfortable, so it depends on your comfort zone. So if you think you are good with syllogism, then you should practice more, because syllogism is every year you can find 5 questions in syllogism. I'm including the reverse syllogism as well in this, and you can solve those questions. Those are again solvable questions. Input output, it is one of those sections which has been make and break for many this year, and luckily I do not solve input output questions because I'm also not very comfortable with them. But this year, because I solved other sections as planned, so I had time left to do input output question, and I did that. There were 5 questions I think, and all of them were correct. And if you see my marks, it is only because of those 5 questions I was able to clear the reasoning section, because my accuracy is not very high in like I'll say in critical reasoning or verbal reasoning questions. So input output questions help me. So this is an advantage you get when you are following a particular strategy and you stick to it in the examination. You hold your nerves, then you'll get some time to look at some other questions as well. But first you need to do the basic strategy, you need to follow it, implement it diligently in the examination hall, and then you can explore more depending upon the time you have in your hand. Data sufficiency questions are also they are doable for some and tricky for many, so you have to be careful attempting these questions. Verbal is one such questions which people think that they know the answer, but nobody knows the answers, because I have also solved many questions of verbal, and this is one section which you think that you will get the right answer, but then you will not be very sure that whether your answer is right or wrong. So you need to practice a lot of questions. You need to get the understanding of some of the fundamental rules that are applicable in those types of questions. It's better to see some cat videos, so you'll get a good idea of how to approach those questions. But usually you will get good accuracy in verbal questions once you have got hold of the basic concepts. So like 80%, 75% accuracy if you're getting in these questions. So if 4 questions are there, you're getting 3 correct. So it's a very good return compared to the amounts of effort that you will be giving in learning these questions. So that is all about verbal. And coding, decoding is another section which is doable. Sometimes it is very easy, sometimes it is tricky, but it can be done. It's not very high-fi in RBI. I have seen this many I think last 3 years coding, decoding has been solvable in my opinion. Next, I'm coming to the tough section, the toughest for me in the entire syllabus of RBI. If I classify something as toughest, it is the puzzles and seating arrangement questions which I see in the phase 1 examination. Not at all, never in my life I have solved any one puzzle in RBI examination, and this mistake I did in my first attempt, where I thought that I'll be able to solve puzzles, because when I was practicing at my in my mock test, so I used to take 10 to 15 minutes to solve one puzzle, but I used to solve but the puzzle used to get solved. But in the examination hall, in the pressure, maybe you miss some cues in the questions, and then if you're not able to solve, your mind will go into a panic mode that you have lost 10 minutes, 12 minutes, and you have not solved even a single question. So these types of questions I always avoid whenever I see these questions on my screen. Immediately, without thought, I skip those questions. And more, I'll be sharing how I used to approach reasoning section in the real time. I'll show you that all as well. But before going to that, I'll be explaining a little on what should be the preparation strategy for reasoning section. So usually, ideally, what one should do is you should be knowing what is your base level in reasoning. See, it's not like people practice reasoning questions every day, or very often they encounter reasoning. Reasoning is kind of a human skill, something which has developed over the years. So it is as basic as when you are crossing the road, so you reason at what distance the car is, what should be my speed of crossing the road. So these are all reasoning only. So but when you are solving the questions, how comfortable you are with those concepts on paper, this is very individual specific, and in order to know that, you'll have to test yourself. So in my opinion, what you should do is you should give at least 2 reasoning sectional mocks, the full 45 minutes mock, and then you can analyze where you stand. Like, if you're able to solve questions, and the questions level should be good, you'll get the idea from the percentile only. If your percentile is 88, 90, more than that, so you are in relatively comfortable position, but you're not very safe. You're in a comfortable position, but you need to work hard, and you'll be on the safer side. So that is how you should be analyzing your test initially. Once you are aware of your base level, you should identify and classify topics in the 3 categories which I told you in the previous slide. What are your topics of comfort? What are the questions that you're able to solve well? What are the questions you think you should not be attempting in the examination? Also, these are your decisions, and you need to analyze them and identify them. Once you have found, then you need to focus on gaps. So there are certain types of questions which you should definitely be trying to attempt in the examination. I'll tell you what are those questions are. And there are certain types of questions which in my opinion should not be attempting initially while you are attempting the paper. So you need to identify the gaps accordingly and you need to work on those gaps. If you ask me for reference books, honestly I did not refer any of the books. I did refer few YouTube videos for certain sections, like I told you, like verbal. I referred few CAT videos on how to solve questions of verbal reasoning, and they were helpful. Of course, they did not improve my accuracy to a massive 90% or 100%, but yes, from the meager 40-50, it did improve to 80%, 75%. So that helped me in the examination as well. But if you want some reference book to take some good quality questions and practice them, or if you want to know what is the level of questions in RBI, then you can refer to reasoning books of M.K. Pandey, R.S. Agarwal, Arun Sharma, whatever you can find. You can find PDF as well for these books, and you can refer to any standard YouTube channel. So there are a lot of YouTube channels, they will give you good quality reasoning content. But remember that whatever questions that you are solving, you need to have an idea that whether these questions are of RBI Grade B level or not. So you need to be practicing high level questions. And because what happens if you're not practicing high level questions, you may be able to get the answers here in your mock test or when you are studying or practicing on your own. But in the examination, it will be very difficult to get correct answers with that much of accuracy if you're not aware of those level of questions. And it has a cascading effect on your subsequent questions. Like even the easy questions you'll be not be able to solve because you'll lose your confidence in the exam. Regardless, I would say you have to practice whatever strategy you make in your mocks. At least give 10 sectional mock of reasoning and 5 full length. So in the sectional mock of reasoning, only reasoning questions will be there. In the full length, all the 200 questions will be there of all 4 sections. So that is how at least 15 mocks you'll be covering 15 mocks. That should be your target. So practice weekly or like once in 3 days or whenever you feel like practicing. Practice on good mood, bad mood, different days, different kind of weather, so that your mind is tuned to reasoning questions regardless of the circumstances and environment you are in. And improvise wherever you feel like you are seeing something which is very obvious, errors which are happening which you think need attention. Do focus on it and give some efforts to those particular sections, and you'll definitely get the results as well. But you'll have to give effort to those particular sections. The in-hall strategy when you are in the front of the screen, it is very simple. It is very basic, and you need to have patience and perseverance to execute this strategy. And I did this in past 2 attempts, and I had been successful in executing this. But what is more important in executing this strategy is you need to have patience, and you need not give up while you are attempting the questions. Because what happens in the exam, there are so many thoughts going on in your mind when you are attempting the questions. I also face those thoughts, and I'll share you what those thoughts are. So when I see when you get into the reasoning section, usually there will be questions on puzzles. In a line, I think 4 to 5 puzzles will be there. So what you need to do is you need to first skim all 60 questions. This will take 2 to 3 minutes, not more than that. When you skim all the 60 questions, you need to identify what questions you need to attempt in the first go, right? So I'll tell you what questions you should be trying to attempt in the first go. So there are certain solo questions. What do I mean by solo questions? So basically what happens, for example, if I take a puzzle, so usually in puzzles you will get 4 to 5 questions based on one puzzle, which will be a paragraph, and then on the basis of that paragraph you will have 4 to 5 questions. Similarly, input output question, you will have input output, and then you will have, let's say, 4 questions in based on that. So these types of questions, these are paragraph based questions. Any questions which is not paragraph based, like which is an individual question, one liner, two liner, for example, if I may tell you, there is a rearrangement question, like they give you any number, or they give you any word. Let's say they give you a word. Let's take the example word reserve, and they will give you some instruction like remove all the these let's say all the even placed letters, remove all those letters, and then in the remaining letters do +1, something of that sort they will tell you, and then you need to execute the operations, and then you have to rearrange it, and then whatever the instruction is you need to execute. So these questions are solo questions, so this should be your you should be attempting in your first attempt. So always try to go for these types of questions in your first go. So identify those solo questions. Then you have to identify some moderate questions, and you have to skip tough questions. So tough can vary from person to person. If I am giving the exam, for me puzzles are always tough, regardless of whatever the level is. I don't even read puzzles. Immediately I see that's the question related to puzzle. Even in data sufficiency they give puzzles, so you have two statements and then rearrangements is there, and then it is a kind of sitting arrangement only. So that also I skip. I don't attempt those types of questions as well. So wherever I see puzzles, I immediately skip it. So in the first scheme, which will take you 2 to 3 minutes, you have to identify these two questions, these two categories of questions which you will be attempting in the first go. And the best thing to do is mark and review. There is an option to mark and review the questions. You just click on mark and review, and you have a panel on the right side of the screen where question numbers are displayed, and whichever questions you have marked and review, it will turn purple. So it's easy to directly go to that questions when you are doing it. Once you are done with this exercise, then you start doing questions one by one. Now I'll tell you where the mind will start to play when you are doing this exercise. So usually what happens, you will see some first 25 questions or even 30 questions in your reasoning paper. It will be puzzle. So when you are skipping questions, when you are skimming and skipping, so when I used to skip the questions, so I used to think, oh my god, 30 questions are gone, and I am thinking of not attempting any of those 30. So my 30 questions are gone directly. So these kind of thoughts come in your mind, but gradually when you solve every single questions, you get that feeling of achievement. Yes, I am reaching closer to my target mark, and that is what motivates you in the examination hall. So be very careful with regards to this. There is a possibility, I'm telling you, that this can go to 35 as well, but please do execute this strategy what I'm trying to tell you. Execute in the mock test and you will realize what I'm trying to tell. And one more thing, I'm 100% sure that it's not like that in the exam IBPS will give you all 60 questions on puzzles. It's not like that. They'll not do that. I mean, the worst case they can do that. Nobody knows IBPS, but logically and they should not be doing this. So at least 20 questions will be there which will be not from puzzles. And in out of these 20 questions, if you are able to attempt 16-17 with this strategy and considering 80% accuracy, you will be clearly in as far as sectional cutoff goes for reasoning. So you need to be this is how you should be approaching the reasoning paper in the examination hall. Few PYQs I have taken to illustrate what I was trying to tell you and what is my thought process when I see a question of reasoning. Like for example, see this question. First of all, if I see this question, so there are two questions. So I'll say, but this is not a paragraph based. These are two individual questions. So I'm definitely going to mark and review these questions. A, because it is not a paragraph, and secondly because I know that this is a question of syllogism. and I have practiced a lot of questions on syllogism. I am very comfortable with these topics, so I am 100% going to attempt these 2 questions in my first attempt. Look at this question. So this is again rearrangement questions which I was telling you. So in these types of questions you need to be very careful, and you need to see each element very carefully. If you miss any one element, your answer will go wrong, and you cannot do blunder in reasoning section of missing these kind of questions. You have to solve these kind of questions if you want to clear. So this is again one of the, it is a paragraph question, but it is an easy one, and I am very comfortable with this, so I'll definitely attempt this question. So I'll mark and review. This is a question of reverse log. So in this type of question, you see that conclusion is given, and you have to find from which of the statement this conclusion is correct. So in these types of questions, if you are lucky, so you'll have to do trial and error. So usually what I do not check first and fifth statements. I always start from third statement, and then I go to second, then I go to fourth, and then I go to fifth, and then to the first, because I have seen that first option is not the correct option in these types of questions. So that is why I never attempt the first option. I do not check it, and you have to check it. There can be other shortcuts, I am not sure, but what I do is I used to solve each and every statement, and then I used to see whichever is suitable as per the conclusion. But like I was telling you, this will be a mark and review question, but this question will take time. I know that I can solve this question, but it will take time. So initially I'll not prefer solving this question. I'll try to solve other questions, other simpler questions, I would say. Similarly, this is the same reverse log question, same strategy I'll apply here as well. Now look at this question. This is 18 to 24. Total 7 questions are there. And no matter what you think that this is solvable or whatever it is, I do not read this question. There is no point of reading and wasting time, because you need to just clear the sectional cutoff in reasoning. At least that is what I think. So I don't read these kinds of questions. Immediately I see 7 questions are there, it will be complicated, it won't be easy, so I'll skip this question. This is a tough question for me. This is one question. This is not related to this paragraph. This is in solo question which I was talking about. See this question. So this is a question of inequality. Solo questions, you must be attempting this in the first attempt itself. Look at this question. This is again a data sufficiency question, and it is a very complicated data sufficiency question, because not only it is data sufficiency, but it is combined with seating arrangement. So this is a question which I'm definitely skipping. I'm not attempting this question because I'm not comfortable with this topic at all. This is a verbal question. You see, you have a situation. You have a situation given over here, and you need to find the reason. Which can be the reason. So these types of questions, these are solvable questions if you have practiced enough and you know some of the fundamental rules of verbal reasoning. If you're not aware of this, you think in the exam that you have solved it correctly, but in verbal it is very difficult to say with surety that what will be the correct answer. So that is how verbal is, and you need to deal with that in that way only. This is a 4 question again. This is a 4 question. I think it is a mixture of blood relation and a puzzle. So I am gonna skip this question without wasting any second. So I am clear in my head, and without any doubt, you need to have conviction with your strategy and implement it without wasting any second in the exam hall. So that's it for the reasoning video. I think this will help you a lot, and please do try to make your own strategy, implement it in the mocks, and reciprocate it in the exam. You'll definitely, at least you'll clear the sectional cutoff with ease in the reasoning if you are doing this. If you have any queries and you think you need some help, you can always mail me on this email ID.